It's Lee from the Japanese Water Gardens. It's been absolutely boiling hot today, and a lot of the customers that have been coming in have been worried about the announcement that the Met Office has made. Apparently on Monday and Tuesday this week we're going to see some seriously warm temperatures. It might even reach as high as 40 degrees, which for the UK is extremely hot. I don't think it's ever got that hot before. So I thought, why not make a video quickly and explain about the kind of things that you should be doing to help protect your fish. I'm going to start by showing you a few of the ponds here, and we've actually made a few changes. Now normally we would have one air stone in the corner of this pond, and that's adequate to provide the oxygen that our fish need. But as the temperatures have been going up, we've decided it's time to increase the aeration. We've put a big air pump in every pond, and that is really turning the water over. The water returns that would normally come in just below the surface, we've just stuck a couple of bends on there and a short piece of pipe. Now the water is jetting in and it's agitating the surface and powering in the oxygen. So these fish are going to be absolutely fine. This water is lovely and clear, it's rich in oxygen, the fish are active and they're feeding. But what about a normal garden pond? How would that fare if the temperature starts to go up? Well, often the fish end up suffering. Let me show you a picture of a pond that I cleaned out about 2 years ago. It was a very attractive pond, plenty of wildlife in there, and lots of plants. Now the pond owner was under the impression that these plants would keep the water oxygenated for the fish, and that simply is not true. Sorry about that motorbike. That's one of the reasons I don't make these kind of videos very often here, because whenever you're out here you've got cars racing up and down the A52. Now a pond like this is actually completely unsuitable for fish, because you've got huge amounts of dying, decaying material, you've got sediment and filth on the bottom. You just get that. When I actually got that emptied, that's what was in the bottom. 6 inches of sludge, dying, decaying leaves, stones, and God knows what else. This pond was totally unsuitable for fish, and if the water had got warm in there, there is no way that the fish could have survived. When you have a pond, it's really important that you don't allow the sediment and the muck and filth to build up like this. Regularly cleaning it out, shoveling it out, pumping it out and shoveling it out, doing whatever you need to get rid of this is a really important task. Obviously that's not something that you're going to be able to do before Monday, but what you should definitely be thinking about is making sure that all of your pumps, your fountains and your waterfalls are unblocked and they're working as well as they possibly can be. Aerating water is all about movement. It's about bringing water up from the bottom of the pond and agitating the surface, creating an exchange point where the oxygen can get in and the other gases can get out. If you discover a pond where the fish appear to be short of oxygen, there are a few things that you can do that might make a massive difference to the fish's chance of survival. And the first thing is get some fresh water into the pond. Just simply using a hose pipe and spraying water in through a mister like that can literally save your fish's life. You need to respond quickly with something like this. It's no good waiting half an hour and seeing if the fish suddenly start feeding. When you see the fish struggling, when they're at the surface, you need to act, because it's not going to be long before they start dying. So don't be afraid of getting out a hose pipe, turning it on. This is going to saturate the water with oxygen, and it's going to help to cool it down quickly. I can remember a few years ago when one of my customers discovered that he was experiencing a power cut. He went out to his pond, was a particularly warm day, and a lot of the fish were up at the surface, and they were mouthing at the surface, and they were not happy at all. He didn't have any way of restoring power to the pond. The power was out to the whole of the street. So what he did is he went into the shed and he grabbed a brush, and he stood at the side of the pond and he literally plunged this brush up and down in the water, and that started getting the oxygen back in. Now that's a very energetic way of doing it, and it's not perfect because you might be bashing the fish on the head while you're doing it. But if that's all you've got, then it could be the difference between you losing the fish. Another way that you can put oxygen in is if you've got any hydrogen peroxide in your treatment cupboard, you can give the pond a dose of hydrogen peroxide. Hydrogen peroxide is often used by the Water Authority to re-oxygenate water in big lakes when they've got algae blooms and they've had issues with the fish being short of oxygen. It works almost immediately. The dose for it is the same as what you'd use if you was using it to clean up after you've used potassium permanganate in your pond. So a lot of you might even have that in your shed. It's hydrogen peroxide, and you'd literally just pour it into the pond, and it would rapidly get the oxygen level up. It's only going to be temporary, of course, but it would quickly restore the oxygen level and get the fish a bit more comfortable. Oxygenating water has got absolutely nothing to do with plants. In fact, too many plants can mean that you lose all the oxygen in the water. Plants like these marginals are absolutely fine. It's fine to have a few plants, and they look really attractive. They bring in the wildlife. They help with removing the nutrients out the water, and the nitrates out and the phosphates out. They look really attractive, and they give, you know, a nice environment for the wildlife, but they do not offer any beneficial action at actually improving the oxygen level. This whole idea of oxygenator is based on a misunderstanding. During the daytime, plants do give off oxygen. It's a byproduct. When they're photosynthesizing, they take in carbon dioxide and they release oxygen as a byproduct. But at night time, that whole process shuts down. and you end up with very low levels of oxygen in ponds that are densely planted. As I said, it's all about that sediment really, and about the congestion. If you've got a sensible number of plants and you've got plenty of movement in your pond, then it's not going to be a problem. But if your pond is thick with weeds and gunk and absolutely choked out with plants, then you're going to have problems. This is our display pond on the front. Got all the fountains and the waterfalls working. We don't actually keep any fish in here, but they'd be fine. We sell lilies, irises, got the nice water lettuce in. Something like this would be absolutely fine. A few plants in there, plenty of water movement. If we wanted to put fish in there, then we certainly could. So remember, it's all about water movement. It's about keeping the water turned over, keeping your pump running, keeping your fountain unblocked. Keep plenty of oxygen in the water. This morning when I arrived at the shop, Wendy had filled this table up with air pumps, and this was a really great idea. I wish I'd have thought of this idea. Just put a big sign up, let your fish breathe, warning, make sure that you've got plenty of oxygen for your pond, and a big selection of air pumps. A question that I get asked a lot is, what kind of air pump or how big an air pump do I need for a pond? And it's not a question that's easy to answer, because it's not really about how big the pond is. It's actually more about what you're expecting the air pump to do. So a small air pump like this one that costs about £40, comes with 4 air stones, and it's just a little air pump, like a big version of an aquarium pump. That sort of size pump would almost certainly be enough to keep the fish alive in a pond where the oxygen level was getting dangerously low. But it's only going to be enough to maintain a low level of oxygen. It will keep the fish alive, but it's not going to make them really comfortable. It's not going to bring them up and get them feeding and really get them happy. To do that, you need something that's got a little bit more oomph. So a pump like this one, which costs £75, is going to be a better choice. It comes with airline, it comes with air stones. You get everything that you need in the box. It'll move the water more. It doesn't really matter how big the pond is. If all that you're looking for is a pump that's going to keep the water moving and keep the fish alive, then the small pumps are great. It's not worth being without one. You should have one of these as a backup in your shed. You can bring it out when you're doing a salt bath for your fish, for example. You can put it out onto your pond when we're getting one of these hot weather issues, and it'll boost the level of oxygen in your pond. But a bigger pump like this one, the 20 or 30 or even a 60 litre per minute one, that's going to be something that will be a real asset for the pond, and it will make sure that you're saturating the water with oxygen. So you're not just keeping the fish alive, you're actually making them really comfortable. So I'm going to leave it at that for tonight. when Monday and Tuesday comes, just keep a close watch on those fish. Thank you for taking the time to watch my video. I do hope that you've enjoyed it. I don't normally waffle on like this, but if you have liked it, I appreciate you giving me a thumbs up, posting a comment, subscribing to the channel, or just saying aye in the comments. Have a nice evening. Thanks very much from Lee at the Japanese Water Gardens.